맡은 대전발전연구원의 여민섭입니다. I am today's MC in Sumyeon, Research Fellow of Daejeon Development Institute.
저는 충남대학교의 이지혜입니다. I'm Jihae from Chungnam National University.
본 세션은 기조 강연과 5개의 패널 강연으로 이루어져 있습니다. 모든 강연이 끝난 후 공동 질의응답 및 토론 시간을 가질 예정입니다.
The session will consist of one keynote speech followed by 5 panel speeches. After finishing the speeches, we will have the time for discussion and Q&A at the end of this session.
본 세션의 좌장은 대전 테크노파크의 원장님이신 전의진 박사님이십니다.
And now we will present our moderator, Dr. Daejeon, the president of Daejeon Technopark in the Republic of Korea.
전의진 박사님께서는 독일 하노버 대학교에서 공학 박사 학위를 취득하셨으며 인천정보산업진흥원 원장과 지식경제부 로봇 시범사업 총괄 추진단장을 역임하셨습니다.
Dr. John got his doctorate in engineering from Hanover University in Germany. Before joining Daejeon Technopark, he served as a member of President Advisory Council for Science and Technology in the Republic of Korea. And also, he is involved in many important projects in the field of robotic science and IT.
자, 그럼 오늘의 좌장이신 전의진 박사님을 큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome him with a big applause.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's another beautiful morning, yeah? But a little bit chilly rather than yesterday. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who joined this plenary session too, and especially for our distinguished guests from abroad. Actually, this is the best season to visit Korea, the end of October and early November, to enjoy the colorful scenery and the falling leaves. Yeah, very emotional season. Yeah. Now, if you are all ready, I'd like to begin the plenary session too. As the MC introduced me, I am the president of Technopark, Daejeon Technopark. Our mission is to support the local industries through technology innovation. Now, in this morning session, we will think about what and how to establish creative economy and fostering regional industries from the viewpoint of the innovation facilitator, such as central government and local government as well. This session will take about 2 hours, and we will have 1 keynote speech and 5 panel speakers. Now, I have the honor to introduce today's keynote speaker and panel speaker as well. Today's honorable keynote speaker is Professor Michael Luger at the University of Manchester, please. He's now working in the United Kingdom, but he used to work also at the Duke University in the USA and University of North Carolina. He is one of the founders of the famous Triangle Research Park. And next, I will introduce our panel member, Mr. James Darling, the mayor of the city McAllen, Texas. He is also an attorney specializing in the local government law, and also he's serving the general counsel for the Doctors Hospital at Renaissance, Edinburgh in Texas. Next is Mr. Dirk Hilbert from Germany. He's the deputy mayor of city Dresden, Germany. Our city, Daejeon and Dresden, we have special technical relationship in nanotechnology area, and he visited last couple of years Daejeon regularly. He has also extensive experience in innovation management and technology evaluation. And next is Mrs. Airin Diany. She's the mayor of South Tangerang city of Indonesia. It is a kind of a research town, just like Daejeon. And she's also the chairman of Red Cross organization of South Tangerang city. And she used to be a good partner of new Indonesian national president, Mr. Widodo. Okay, next speaker, Mr. Jae-Moon Park, the assistant minister of Korean government. He is assistant minister for the Office of R&D Policy at the Ministry of Science, ICT, and Future Planning. He is also expert in the area of ICT, telecommunication, and science and technology policy. And our next panel speaker is Dr. Mohd Sulaiman, right? Okay, please. From Malaysia. He is the president and chief executive officer of the Malaysian Industry Government Group for the High Technology, which is under the Prime Minister's office. It is a public-private partnership platform in Malaysia. Now, we are going to have today's keynote speech from Professor Michael Luger on the topic, what makes Manchester and England North so special? Please. Okay, you have 20 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you for that introduction, distinguished guests, participants. It is a real pleasure for me to be here for several reasons. The WTA GIF has for many years served as a platform to profile best practice around the world in regional and technology-led economic development. So I have enjoyed learning in the last 2 days from others, and I'm pleased to share some of my experiences now in England with you. I was honored to be on the program of the WTA many years ago, so it's a pleasure also to come back to Daejeon after these many years and see the progress the city has made and how this conference, this constellation of activities has grown. Can I have all of us give a round of applause to the organizers of these events? They really have been impeccably planned. I'm pleased to be reunited with some friends and colleagues. I want to especially note Professor Daejeon Oh, who I've now known for 15 or so years. The WTA has changed in many ways, but one constant has been his leadership as Secretary General of the WTA, and I think this success is testament to his hard work and vision. Thank you, Professor Oh. And finally, I'm pleased to be here because this project is co-authored by my son, and who just finished his PhD in geography at King's College. And any academic father likes nothing more than to write a paper with his son, Luger and Luger, so I'm pleased to have that experience. Now, in early visits to the WTA conference, I presented the story of North Carolina and Research Triangle, the story of how a moribund region of the U.S. was transformed into a leading part of the U.S. through visionary leadership, the use of innovative real estate practices at the Research Triangle Park, to create technology clusters in leading sectors in biotech and medicine, environmental sciences. In 2006, I was recruited to Manchester and found that part of the world to be fascinating as well, as a poster child of what England calls regeneration, the transformation of old industrial cities. So in the time allotted to me, I'll tell a couple of vignettes. I've actually reduced it to 2, and I was warned not to overrun my time. But these stories all have a common strand. The common strand of these stories is that strong, stable political leadership makes a difference to regional success. Having nearby jurisdictions act together across party and geographic borders makes the whole region stronger. Infrastructure can be a bridge that unites disparate regions, the glue that binds a region together. And most important, there is scope for a city to act commercially using its public assets, the grants it can get from government, its tax revenues and land to leverage private investment in large projects. Hence, the subtitle of my talk is Manchester Limited, or in US parlance, Manchester Inc. So you can see this is really an illustration of the triple helix, Henry Etzkowitz's famous term, where universities, government, and private companies working successfully together can make a difference. The backdrop for what I'm presented is an economic divide between the north and south of the UK, a gap that's been widening since at least the 1980s and has resisted efforts by governments of both political persuasions to be closed. The maps here provide the context. We can see the north that I'm talking about really goes from just south of Manchester up to the Scottish border. The southeast is really the large commuting shed of London. The north includes cities like Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Sheffield. Not included in this is the Midlands, obviously Wales or Scotland. I should mention that the north-south divide is not unique to the UK. The economic development literature is rife with references to the core periphery, the north-south problem in many countries. In fact, one observation about modern societies since 2000 at least has been widening disparities, widening inequalities, not only between regions, but among income groups. The story I'll be telling about the north and south of England really is paralleled in Korea, where, like the UK, there was one primary city that is both the political and financial capital of the country, London in the UK's case and Seoul in the Korean case, and I know the Korean government has taken efforts to disperse population from Seoul to Daejeon and other parts of Korea. Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, Sheffield are the industrial heartland of the UK, coming with a strong Victorian history. Liverpool and Newcastle are major ports. These were the parts of the UK that produced coal, textiles, ships, cutlery, and the machines that fueled the Victorian England. But the region is not homogeneous. You may recall from history the animosity between Yorkshire and Lancashire that resulted in, among other things, the War of the Roses. And you may appreciate the rivalry between rugby league and rugby union. There's lots of differences. The north of England contains some very prosperous areas in Cheshire and some of the country's poorest areas. Manchester, undoubtedly, however, is the hub of the broad northern region. That region in the circle in the north constitutes some 7 million people. Manchester is often referred to as UK's second city, similar in many respects to Philadelphia in the US and Daejeon in Korea. The city region has 2 million people. The city itself has about 500,000. But the region as a whole has been massively affected by depopulation and deindustrialization since the Second World War. Liverpool was among the world's leaders in population loss. One think tank actually recommended in 2007 the best solution to Liverpool is to shut it down and relocate population. Interestingly enough, in the last couple of years, Liverpool has turned around. Now this graph shows two things of interest. The rapid decline of the greater Manchester region, starting around World War II, and the reversal of decline around 2005. These are the 10 jurisdictions that make up Greater Manchester. The inset reminds us that in 1900, Manchester was among the top 10 largest cities in the world. It fell dramatically after World War II, but it started to return. Now, during the years that the Manchester region was declining, the southeast of the UK was prospering, in part because of agglomeration economies, the rank size rule where the primary city just continues to attract economic activity, liberalization of financial regulations both by the Thatcher governments and the Blair governments made London a very attractive place for financial services to locate, and London became, and still is, the #1 financial capital of the world, called the Big Bang. Outstanding universities in science and technology are in the UK, or in the London area. Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, UCL, King's attract talent, attract capital, and spin out companies. There's Silicon Roundabout and the Thames Valley Corridor in that region. And London, of course, is an international transportation hub with Heathrow Airport, the third busiest in the world, and is a terminus of Eurostar and HS1, the high-speed link between London and the continent, which carries an increasing number of passengers and freight. So while the north was declining, the southeast was rising, which gave rise to an increasing geographic disparity, which we can see in so many ways in terms of wealth. There's actually more than a 2-time difference between the northeast of England and London, and that just gets worse because of property values continue to be hotter in the south than in the north. Now, one might think that because London is a financial center, that the financial meltdowns in 2008 would have closed the gap, but indeed, the North had its share of financial services. Northern Rock, which was the first bank to go under, is in Newcastle. HBOS is in Halifax, Yorkshire Bank in Leeds, and Co-op in Manchester. And moreover, most of the jobs in the North, a disproportionate number, were in the public sector. And the public sector shed many more jobs in the private sector since 2008 as the government downsized. So the question is, how has government responded to the divide? Well, the Labour government created regional development agencies, the Northwest Development Agency, Yorkshire First, with some devolved authority, but didn't have its own financial controls. It relied on grants from central government through the regional growth funds and from the European Union for the kinds of things it needed. An influential 2012 report by Lord Hazeltine, Michael Hazeltine, who was a very influential minister in the Thatcher government, made a strong case for more attention to the growing regional disparities and seemed to change the tide. So when the coalition took power 5 years ago, the Lib Dems and the Conservatives, they replaced the RDAs with local enterprise partnerships, dissolving political power that the RDAs had, and actually having to reverse this only recently, giving the LEPs, the enterprise partnerships, more power, in part because of the Scotland vote. The independence movement in Scotland created a whole furore in the UK for devolved authority. The government is now paying attention to. Okay, so that's all background. The question is, why did I say Manchester is the poster child of regeneration, the one part in the north that really has turned around and made a difference? Well, there's at least 9 explanations for that. First is a political one. In the 1980s, the Labour-dominated council, and I said before that most of the north is Labour-dominated, abandoned old Labour's social welfare stance in favor of a market-facing, commercial, and entrepreneurial orientation. Liverpool didn't, and they continued to decline. Manchester has an appointed chief executive named Howard Bernstein. Now, anyone who studies infrastructure has heard of an American named Robert Moses, who was an appointed guru for 50 years in New York City, who is responsible for most of the infrastructure development, public works projects in New York over that period. Well, Howard Bernstein is a similar type of figure, extremely strong, who understands how to use his position to leverage real estate and infrastructure developments to fuel growth. And there's an elected leader, a Labour politician named Richard Leese, who's been in office now for 15 years. So one dimension of the story is strong and stable leadership at the top that has pioneered some very innovative public-private partnerships in a very commercial way, and that's really the theme of the story that I'm trying to tell, using public money to leverage the kinds of private investment that regeneration requires. Second, Manchester is creative and ambitious. For many years, it sought the Olympic Games. It ended up losing the Olympic Games to London, but it got the Commonwealth Games. It created something called the Manchester International Festival in 2009, which, if you Google it, is now one of the leading cultural events in the world. So Manchester had a lot of vision and a lot of ambition to play on the world stage. And then there was an event that one couldn't have planned that had a silver lining. In 1996, the IRA bombed central Manchester, leveling a good part of the commercial district. But what that did was unlocked a lot of central government money that the city used to leverage private investment, and also a relaxation of some planning controls to accelerate infrastructure development. Bringing money from companies like Prudential and P&O and Peel Holdings to rebuild the central business district to the largest covered mall in Europe. This pattern continued into the new millennium, with public money being used to induce billions of pounds of private investment for projects like Spinning Fields, Eastlands, Media City, Manchester Science Park, Airport City. I don't expect you to know what these projects are, but they're very, very large, hundreds of millions and billions of pounds of investment that have been successful. Another dimension of Manchester's success is its legacy as a music capital, the home of well-known clubs and groups. This cultural legacy led to the development of Media City, which is an 81-hectare mixed-use property development housing a large part of the BBC that relocated to Manchester, ITV and parts of Salford University, that brought 500 million pounds of investment from the private sector to develop. Now, anyone who knows Manchester knows it's also a sports capital. I don't go anywhere in the world and people don't say Man United or now Man City. The legacy of the Commonwealth Games made it a national center for cycling and swimming, but certainly the economic impact of Man United and Man City football clubs is huge, not only in terms of consumer spending, but in Man City's case, the Arab owners of the club are pumping hundreds of millions of pounds into development of the city. And of course, we can't forget universities. Manchester is home to 3 large universities that brings in 100,000 students a year, the largest concentration of higher education in Europe. Some 12,000 of those are non-European. What that means is that the universities are tremendously important for agglomeration, both in terms of export industry and as a generator of technology. As an export sector, 300 million pounds a year is brought by non-European students. If you apply a general multiplier of 3.5, we're talking about 1 billion pounds of induced economic activity. If you add non-British Europeans, it's many more times that. In terms of technology development, the historical strength in areas like cryptography and coding, Alan Turing, you may know that name, nuclear, Ernest Rutherford, the first splitting of the atom, and the first stored program computer, all generated in Manchester. And there is a legacy of that in many of the industries in the area, including the nuclear industry, the corridor stretching from Manchester to Newcastle, to Liverpool. But the biggest hope today is around graphene, a substance discovered and developed by University of Manchester physicists who were awarded the Nobel Prize for that several years ago. The National Graphene Institute is now under construction, funded by a combination of European grants and central government grants that will again induce private investment. Interesting on graphene is a competitor for Manchester is Korea, very actively pursuing graphene applications through a research lab at Seoul National University, and Samsung is all over it. The final reasons for why Manchester has been successful are on this illustration. Manchester made itself a transportation hub in the 1960s by having the foresight to expand Manchester Airport, adding a second runway, allowing airlines that wanted international connections to use Manchester rather than London. Now, interestingly enough, Heathrow, which is the 3rd busiest airport in the world, only has 2 runways, and no other airport in the UK has more than 1 runway. So Manchester, already the 3rd busiest in England, has the capacity for further growth, and that's been enormously important. But it's not just the airport itself, but it's the connections to the airport. The city understood that getting people to the airport would make it a regional hub, so it worked with Network Rail to make it a major transportation exchange and extended its light rail system to Manchester Airport, so people from all over the north use Manchester as its airport. The last ingredient Manchester forged regional coalitions, not to act as a single municipality, not only in terms of AGMA, the Association of Greater Manchester Authorities, the 10 jurisdictions that formed 1 county, but in terms of reaching out across the north to create a northern hub, a coalition among the 3 regional development authorities, a consortium of the 8 research universities in the north, and many other ways where there is a history. Now, this is assisted in part because most of the northern authorities are labor-dominated, so there's a common political agenda. But there is also a sense that in this very challenging environment, it's really important to work together. Now, I'm running out of time, so I wanted to quickly talk about 2 of my 3 examples that are in the paper. You can read them more fully in the paper. But what I want to do with these two examples is illustrate the commercial savvy that I've referred to that makes Manchester very special. The first is Manchester Science Park. Now, I was interested in this because I've written and studied science parks around the world and knew about Manchester Science Park, but this is a particularly interesting commercial example. It was established in 1984, owned by 9 owners. Initially, the capital came from some bank debts and some shareholdings by these 9 entities, 2 of whom the City of Manchester and the University of Manchester owned 27%. There were 5 commercial investors, the City of Salford and Manchester Metropolitan University, who owned in these shares shown until 2013. The city put land it owned into leasehold and applied for development grants for some of the initial construction. The Science Park built buildings for rent to occupants, and the occupants paid rent that secured the bank loans, operating cost, and flowed back to the city, so the city was taking in considerable rent every year. This was a very nice public-private model. As the park matured, the debt was retired, property values rose, more rent could be charged, so capital value increased. So there was a notional or potential capital gain, since the shares these 9 owners had initially were only bought for £1 a share. As capital values rose, there was this huge potential capital gain, amounting to some £5.2 million for the university as an owner, 1.9 for Manchester Metropolitan University, each of the commercial investors about 1.2 million and so forth. I say potential because it hadn't been sold, but lo and behold, in 2013, the majority shareholding was sold to a private developer. Now, interesting about that transaction was the private developer got majority ownership, but didn't pay the assessed market value. Howard Bernstein, the chief executive, sold it, agitated for selling it less than that because he wanted that developer to develop other projects in the city. AstraZeneca, Alderley Park, the Eye Hospital, Manchester Business School, all projects this developer was. And the university was comfortable with that, and the private investors were. They all walked away with money in their pocket. It was a very successful conclusion, and we'll see the park thrive because the majority landowner knows something about property development. Let me turn to the last example in this vignette, the Manchester Airports Group. This is the largest UK-owned airport operator, serving some 42 million passengers, handling some 600,000 tons of freight every year. Through its ownership not only of Manchester Airport, but 3 other airports, Stansted, East Midlands, and Bournemouth. It has a commercial property company with assets now over £600 million. Again, this was owned until last year by the 10 local authorities. Manchester owned 55, and the 9 other municipalities owned 5% each. But in 2013, in order to finance the purchase of Stansted Airport from BAA, an Australian investor was brought in, sold a 35.5% equity share that changed the ownership. But nonetheless, the airport has been enormously successful for the different owners who still, the public sector who still owns it. In 2012, construction began an £800 million airport city development that will stimulate the local economy further, creating on-site logistics, manufacturing, office, and leisure facilities. That's the first airport city to be developed in the UK, but it needed capital to do that, and it brought in, using public money on the ground level, to bring in Beijing Construction Engineering Group as an equity partner in that project. So today what we have in Manchester Airport, now lots of cities own their airports, but very few of this scale, where Manchester Airport's 4 airports and property businesses together contribute around $4 billion to the UK economy, support 130,000 jobs. Its recent pre-tax profits exceeded £168 million. It pays every year to the 10 municipalities some 42 million. Last year it added another 30 million. So 72 million pounds were paid to the 10 local authorities who own it. That is reason enough to keep this coalition together. That's very lucrative in this time. Now I'll dispense with the third of my vignettes, the Northern Powerhouse. You can read it in my paper. But let me then go to what the conclusions are from this. Now we know from lots of different studies that for a city region to thrive, it needs to have a couple ingredients, things like a strong, stable political and business leadership, cross-border and cross-partisan joined-up action, stimulative, effective universities, good intra and inter-regional transportation and global links, access to markets and inputs, including energy and appropriately skilled labor. Now, that's all stuff that we know. But in addition to good leadership and generation of innovative ideas, there has to be access to capital. You have to be able to have resources to build the infrastructure that's the foundation for growth. Today, more than ever, almost all countries, public debt has risen to a point where these countries can't borrow to the extent they did in the past, and they can't tax businesses and households much more than they are. So traditional sources of finance for infrastructure have dried up. Governments must be able to leverage investment from the private sector, including sovereign wealth funds, by acting commercially, and that's really the secret ingredient that makes Manchester so successful. The region's been able to outperform other parts of the UK, in fact, other parts of Europe, because of its very clever use of its access to public grants, its ownership of land and assets, and command on taxes to leverage billions and billions of pounds of private and sovereign wealth money. Now, the projects that have been chosen may not be the best projects. That's a topic for another paper. And we may not have enough in all of this to close the north-south divide. But we are seeing a city that is acting in very innovative ways to regenerate and to make a difference. Thank you for your attention. I'm sorry if I overran my time.
Manchester City is very familiar to Korean people, not because of Science Park, but because of football team. Yeah, many Korean football mania watch TV to the early hour in the morning. Okay, thank you very much again. Okay, next we have the panel speaker, Mr. James Darling, the mayor of city of McAllen, Texas, please. Okay.
Good morning. In Kwan Chi Jung Kim, I want to thank you and all the members of the City Council of Daejeon for this wonderful occasion and this great conference along with the TWA membership. As I said, my name's Jim Darling. I'm from McAllen, Texas. That's a long way away. It's 13 hours from here. So if you have jet lag, you can nod off. Our Korean friends who don't have jet lag, you have to pay attention to me, please. But my daughter was saying, called me on the phone. She texted me all the time, and she said, geez, Dad, it always seems like I'm talking to you yesterday. And I said, no, it's tomorrow. And she said, well, like whatever, so we'll get by with that. Let me describe my experience with the city of McAllen. I was the city attorney for 18 years, and then I was assistant city manager and city attorney for 10. I was a city councilman for 6, and I've been the mayor for the last 2 years. So it's my 35th year with the city of McAllen. I'm very proud of that. Of course, when you've been around for 35 years, most of the mistakes are yours, and everybody else is taking all the credit. But that's okay, I still love my city. We're in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, which is as deep South Texas as you can see. Our Rio Grande Valley is made up of about 45 cities in a 50-mile stretch, and that's why we call ourselves the region of the Rio Grande Valley. There's 1.2 million people on the north side of the border in Texas. Our border is called the Rio Grande River in the United States and Rio Bravo River in Mexico, and we share that boundary with the city of Reynosa, Mexico, which has approximately 1 million people. The total cities on the Mexican side are equivalent to 2.2 million people, so our region has a total of about 3.4 million people in our region. We're isolated, as you could probably see. You don't see the other cities in Texas on that map, but we're 250 miles south of Dallas. South of San Antonio. We're 520 miles south of Dallas. For you that are on the metric system, that's a long, long way away. And by the way, I thought about the metric system on the way over here on the speech, and I thought, you know, United States, we brag about technology, and we haven't been able to master the metric system, although we tried 3 times to do that. Hopefully, we'll solve that. But our region is literally at the end of the line in the state of Texas. And because of our proximity to the border and our relative isolation, like most cities, we have a lot of challenges. We also have some unique opportunities because of our location and demographics. But I like to feel that every challenge is really an opportunity. Every opportunity can be met through innovation and often with the help of others through collaboration. My presentation will be 3 examples of challenges our city faced and what opportunities they presented and how these opportunities were realized through innovation. As Theodore Levitt said, creativity is thinking up new things, innovation is doing new things. The first and probably the most important and long-lasting innovation is what I call the maquiladora miracle. Maquiladora is Spanish for assembly line manufacturing. The challenge for us became in 1988 when there was a severe peso devaluation in Mexico. If you can imagine this, $1 was worth 100,000 pesos. You literally needed a wheelbarrow to carry around your money to make average purchases. I might say I felt a little bit like that yesterday when I cashed in $20 and got 10,000 won. And then I realized I felt pretty rich doing that, but I realized when I went to the Coke machine and it cost me 2,000 won to buy a Coke, I was no longer rich. But at any rate, the peso devaluation in Mexico was very serious to us because in McAllen, we rely on retail trade with Mexico for 40% of our value-added tax. So literally overnight, our value-added tax, 40% of our taxes was gone. During that same year and 2 years before, we had serious freezes in our valley. We're a subtropical climate. Our citrus was one of our main agricultural components, and we had 2 serious freezes wiped out our citrus industry. So 2 of the 4 main pegs of our economy were literally wiped out in a 2-year period. Now the challenge was find a new economic driver to replace those. Although at the time there was no manufacturing in Reynosa or northern Mexico, there was a push by U.S. companies to relocate out of the United States to compete with the Pacific Rim countries. Instead of hopefully going to the Pacific Rim, our leaders decided that we would recruit businesses, manufacturers for Mexico. We didn't get a lot of cooperation on the northern side of our cities because most of the cities thought, why would you do that? Why would you spend, in McAllen's case, $1 million a year supporting Mexico and its manufacturing recruitment area? But our forefathers had the vision that we're going to show you in a minute of what that happened. So the city of McAllen put up money, reached out to Mexico, to the city of Reynosa, their economic development people, the state of Tamaulipas, which is the southern state bordering us, and along with the developers of the real property, which probably was the biggest challenge, to get them to agree to put their infrastructure in place so that we could start recruiting manufacturing into Mexico. Well, what happened was really astonishing. Over the next 12 years, we did recruit not only American industries to that, but recently we started recruiting, well, I say in the last 10 years, we started recruiting Pacific Rim companies to our area. Now, now we have over 655 companies manufacturing and located in the McAllen and Reynosa area. We've created 165,000 jobs, with 65,000 of them in McAllen and over 100,000 in Reynosa. We have 2,500 factory managers who live in our city and travel back and forth across our bridges to manage the factories for that. In fact, we continue today to recruit, and we have 2 people today. We have Omar from the city of Reynosa. Stand up, Omar. He's the executive director for the city of Reynosa. And Hel, he is the director for economic development from the state of Tamaulipas. So we brought our team here today. Actually, last night they said they were with a prospective customer, manufacturer customer, to 10 o'clock at night, recruiting him, although that's what they told me. I don't quite believe that. But at any rate, we are here today, in fact, recruiting industry to our area with collaboration between the Republic of Mexico, the city of McAllen, and the city of Reynosa. That success has made us an international city. We actually have a Japanese Chamber of Commerce. We have a very strong Korean community in our city, as well as Filipino and Indian community, both in the manufacturing area and the medical and scientific area. We are a binational city. We were a binational city, and now we're truly and international one. As Mr. Patridge covered yesterday, we are now innovating a manufacturing research component to our city. Trying to find that. There it is right there. Advanced and Rapid Response Manufacturing Research Park, which we think will be a reality very shortly. The second challenge that we have was truly a lack of a first-tier university system in our area. We had 2 universities in our area, but they were not first-tier university systems. They were part of the University of Texas system, but they're not eligible for what they called the Permanent University Fund. The Permanent University Fund in Texas is funded by oil and gas royalties that the state of Texas receives for all the land that it owns. If you know anything about Texas, you know it's a rather large area. The state owns an awful lot of mineral interest rights and have literally hundreds of billions of dollars in that state university fund. We could never get access to that fund because of legislative and constitutional constraints. And so we were looking at that challenge for looking for an opportunity. And lo and behold, 2 years ago, the chancellor of the whole university system and the board president for the university system were from our area. That's the first time that ever happened, and it was never going to happen again. And those 2 gentlemen got together and said, how can we provide for this area in Texas that hasn't gotten what it really deserves? And they decided that the way to do that was to make a new university. So they merged the 2 universities, one in Brownsville, Texas, 60 miles away from Edinburgh, Texas, into one university with 28,000 students. It became a first-tier university in name, and now is eligible for the PUF funds, and there's presently $200 million in construction going on at both locations, and they'll be spread throughout the area. It also took 5 cities to collaborate on that, where each city pledged up a total of $5 million a year for $10 million to convince the state that we were worthy of having PUF funds for our area and for our local students. It also took 2 universities to give up their independence and a legislature to approve it by a supermajority in the state. So that took people at the state, local, and university level to get it done. Oh, I almost forgot. The speaker yesterday from Singapore pointed out that you can't have a first-class university without a medical school. Our first medical students will start July 1st, 2015 in our area, along with 120 residents in 5 major specialties. I should also point out these 5 major specialties is attracting tens of thousands of applicants, not only from the United States, from all over the world. So we'll continue to be an international location, not only in manufacturing, but also education and research. It's a small opportunity with a lot of innovation through a whole bunch of collaborators. The third challenge we had was we have a large oil and gas presence in our city, had over 70 working wells in our city, and that field was depleted. And so we had many of our oil wells being shut in. We also have a dependence on one river. If you look at if you paid attention to our river, the Rio Grande River and the Rio Bravo River supports over 4 million people for their daily water needs and over 1 million of agricultural acres for their water needs for agriculture. So we needed another source of water. So we came up with a concept, and we're doing a study now where we're going to look at the gas wells that have been shut in for geothermal water supply source. We looked at the logs from the gas companies and found that there was significant geothermal activity when they drilled. So that opportunity is to go in and rework those wells, capture that geothermal water, and use through the heat and pressure of that water, actually generate electricity for the purification of the water and sell some of that power into the grid. This is a proposed study by the Regional Water Authority and several municipal water systems contributing to the engineering and further creating a regional delivery system when and if those wells turn fruitful. So that's what it's all about. It's all about taking challenges, turning those into opportunities, and delivering it through innovation. As what Arthur Porter once said, the innovative point is the pivotal moment when talented and motivated people seek the opportunity to act on their ideas and dreams. Isn't that why we're all here today? Seeking our innovative points for the betterment of our communities and our regions, and for some of you, hopefully, the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darling. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next speaker is Mr. Dirk Hilbert, the Deputy Mayor of City Dresden. He is talking about creative economy, the Dresden case. Please.
Annyeonghaseyo. Warm welcome from my side to your conference, and I want to present about the creative economy in the Dresden case. First of all, the city of Dresden is one of the capitals from one state in Germany, has approximately 540,000 inhabitants, and is located on the eastern part of Germany. This means it was the former communist part, and these days we celebrate 25 years of the wall came down, and so we can show what's going on in the last 25 years of rechange of our industrial structure. And our city is since 2006 the first major German city without any debts, so we could use now our money to invest in the future. After the reunification, the industry, the former industry crashed down, and we have to install a new idea, a new strategy, how we can build a new structure of industry. We lost approximately every third industrial job, and this was not such an easy situation. First of all, I will explain where we are. The city of Dresden is in the middle of the two capitals, the capital of Germany, Berlin, and the capital of Czech, Prague, and direct in the center you can mention is our town. And if I look back, what was the reason why we came up on a stronger way is tradition about innovation in our region. A lot of invention came from our region. I will mention the first European porcelain, the first German steam locomotive, the lens reflex camera, coffee filter, and toothpaste, and mouthwash, and so on, was invented in our town. And I bring only one picture. This is now approximately 400 years ago of automation at this time and automation nowadays in our region. So we have a strong tradition in an innovation culture. And what I mentioned already, we have to build up a new industrial structure. And you see here only the development from 2002 to 2012. But if I explain, in the 90s, we had an unemployment rate approximately 20%. The people move where they find jobs, and now we are coming down to an unemployment rate from under 8%, and a huge increase by new jobs. This is the green line, and so the population of our city increased in the last 10 years by 50,000, and also for the next 10 years is recommended another increase by another 50,000 inhabitants every year, 1 to 2% more of population. Our industry is small and medium-sized. Most of companies with less than 500 employees. These are strong companies in niches, so-called hidden champions, and this is our focus also for our business development, focused on strong small and medium-sized innovative companies in mainly three fields of competence. One is the semiconductor and ICT business. We came up in the last 15, 20 years to #1 location in this field of technology within Europe. Another one is life science and biotechnology and new materials and advanced new materials. 15 minutes is not enough to explain all in detail how it's coming up, how we can get within 25 years to one of the most innovative regions within Germany after reunification. So I will focus only on one, in my eyes, very important topic, that is a location for science. We have in our city a lot of universities and institutes. If you are a little bit familiar with the German situation, we have 3 institutes of the Max Planck Society. This means basic research. We have 11 institutes by Fraunhofer Society. That means advanced research. This is the biggest site within Germany. And some other German science organization and our University of Technology and another university. Altogether 15,000 scientists, and this is a huge innovation machine for our development in our region. And so, no wonder if we looking on the scientific workforce, we have the highest concentration of people with higher education from all major German cities. And that is, I think, one of the reasons why we make such a strong progress in the past. And from the city side, we try to bring together all these institutes and also show to our inhabitants what's going on in these institutes, what we focused on, and attract especially young people to the universities and scientific institutes. And so we create a lot of programs. Dresden was in 2006 the second German city of science. This was a competition between all German cities. We built up a lot of learning labs for children. Now over 12 years, we celebrate once every year the Long Night of Science with over 40,000 participants in one night. We install some programs for children, the Kids University, the Junior Doctor, organize Girls and Boys Days, and so on, especially to attract young people for engineering and natural science. I will focus in the next few minutes on what is the future concept for our town, how we can bring it on a new strategic level. And it is override with the name Dresden concept. We had in Germany a competition about a University of Excellence. Our Technical University of Dresden is now one of the excellence universities in Germany with a future-oriented concept, so-called integrated concept. We try to bring all the scientific institutes under one umbrella, under the umbrella of the Association of Dresden concept. This is the university itself, that are the institutes of Fraunhofer, Max Planck, Leibniz Association, and also some cultural institutions, and altogether over 20 institutions who are working together. The mission of this concept is to identify and utilize synergies in teaching and research, infrastructure and administration, working jointly to identify and coordinate research work, joint appointment and recruitment of top staff and shared resources on one campus model. That means we have share the leading people who persons who are the chairman of one non-university research center all have also a chair on the university. We are sign out open topic professors, and we got over 1,300 applications worldwide from the best universities. And we organize the work under this Dresden board in 4 scientific areas with committees. It mentioned also Committee 1 is biotechnology, Committee 2 is microelectronic and ICT, 3rd is energy and material, and 4 is knowledge and culture. You see it's quite similar to the Dresden competence fields, and so we work very strong together between the government side and the scientific institutes. And we create some new projects. One of them is the Welcome Dresden concept. We bring all topics together. When you need permits, when you came as foreigner in another country, then you need different permits. It's now located in one place. We put it together with the dual career service and also the international offices from the scientific institutes in one location, and so you get short ways. If you come to our town, you get some information about all what you have to know in a new city, in a new town. We built up at Dresden science calendar between all these institutions. We started a database where all important machines, laboratories, and offer shared services so that we can use not only the capabilities of the university, we can also use from one hand and for the industrial partners the full technical staff of all institutes under one umbrella. And at the end, we developed some industrial parks in our town. We focused on fields of technology. In one, we concentrate in the north of micro and nano electronics. In the middle of the town is the biotech and medicine, and in the south is materials and energy, with every time scientific institutes close by incubator centers and industrial parks, short ways, and helps to bring more energy on the way, and close collaboration between industry, scientific institutes, and also the government. And we work strong together in working groups, so-called Municipal Forum of Economic and Labor. It's now existing over 15 years. The main players from industry, from scientific institutes, from the government side, working under my leadership in different working groups, and we built up the strategy for our region and discuss it every time so that we can or that we will build up a strong line for our region in business development with a strong focus on innovation. Thank you very much for your attention. And I see I'm in time, 15, 14, 13 seconds. And so thank you, and I hand over back to the moderator.
Thank you very much. Vielen Dank. Next speaker is Honorable Madam Mayor Airin Diany from South Tangerang, Indonesia, please.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, I would like to say thank you to moderator and hopefully can do it 15 minutes. Outline presentation is about overview of the South Tangerang City, general policy to support innovation. South Tangerang City has the potential to develop Science Technopark and model synergy in regional and local of economic creative based on innovation and many sources of innovation, university, Puspitek, business, and others. Where is the city? The city is next to Jakarta, share border with Jakarta, the capital city of the country, Indonesia. And city establishment, Act number 50 of 2008 on establishment of South Tangerang Municipality of Banten Province, and nowadays our city is 6 years. Consists of 7 sub-districts. And then the population is 1.4 million, and the total of location is 147.19 kilometers square. The vision is the realization of the independent South Tangerang City, peaceful and natural. Mission, the vision will be realized by implementing the following mission: improve the quality of community life, improve the function of urban space harmony with environmental, reforming the system of basic facilities and urban, improving basic services and public health education, improve the function and role of cities as centers of trade and services, improving good governance and clean. As also that the population is 1.44 million people, total area is 147.19 kilometer. And then, sorry, actually the slide is not here. And structure of economy by sectors is dominated by tertiary sector, transportation and communication, trade, hotel and restaurant, finance, leasing and corporate services, and 72.75 is tertiary. Urban strategic issue is transportation, waste management, urban open space, and water supply and sanitation. Organizational learning and challenge to become smarter that ICT utilization reinforce local government to give faster response, require civil servant to accelerate and improve their performance, stimulate formulation of better legal policy, ICT utilization stimulate high citizen expectancy, gap between expectancy and capability, changing the way we work and business process, mindset of community and apparatus shifting and real-time monitoring. Impact due to ICT utilization in city governance that we become transparency, more citizen involvement, improvement of public services, faster decision making, faster response to complaint, more target-oriented in delivering services, and cost efficiency. Framework of the road planning of Circle and Inner South Tangerang City, because we are shared border with Jakarta, the capital city, so we make a monorail, mass rapid trans, and BRT, and then light rail transit, because this plan is on the effort to anticipate the high growth of population, most of because of urbanization, which result in high traffic transportation, and in addition to prevent an extreme potential of traffic jam. City government collaboration and cooperation with various institutions and society. City government cooperation with Science and Technology Center, Puspitek, for acceleration general policies in mid-term development planning 2011 until 2016. Assessment Smart City, Low Carbon Emission, partnership with NEDO Japan, City Government with Agency for the Assessment and Application of Technology, BPPT Puspitek Area, for Regional Innovation System, City Government with Sinar Masland and PT BSD Tbk for District Libraries, City Government, Institute Teknologi of Indonesia Puspitek, Research and Education for the Orchid, and then City Government with Timbra Swedia, we make a sister city. City Government with JICA, Education and Environment. City Government with USAID IWAS, Water and Sanitation. City Government with Visoko Bosnia, Education and Agriculture. City Government with Bangladesh, Trade and Industry. City Government with some institute and university, like Institut Teknologi Indonesia, University of Indonesia, University Nasional Jakarta in Businessmen and Entrepreneurs, and Community Forum Dust and Waste Management. ABG, or I mean ABZ, Synergy Model Based Innovation in Developing Economic in South Tangerang. We government, the local government of South Tangerang, that South Tangerang City as a city residential, and South Tangerang City sell as trade and services that we combine with business, including that in our city have the Technopark area, small industry and warehousing, more and less 250 company with join together Puspitek Research and Institution, university and college in South Tangerang, and universities and colleagues outside of South Tangerang make an innovation product. Synergy in a regional economic creative based on innovation that in the private role, small and medium industry, agriculture, small medium business, we join together with Puspitek, 47 Center of Research, Development and Testing labs of various disciplines. City government support economic activity based on creativity, skill and talent to create individual creativity and inventiveness of individuals who have economic value and affect the public welfare. Regional innovation, together creative and competitive product, increasing the output or outcome is increasing economic growth in South Tangerang and make overseas market and domestic market. That's this one, our product in the small medium industry and small medium business and the agriculture of the orchard. Technopark area industrial and warehouse, more and less 250 company is in oil drilling equipment, general contractor heavy equipment, security system, mechanical and electrical installation, architectural hardware, furniture, fitting, drilling contractor, welding equipment, pumps, coal mining, storage, mover, packing and crating, office furniture, chemical for industry, kitchen equipment for restaurant, hotel and hospital, design graphic, physical data management, data remastering, electronic and management, panel, medical equipment, cakes, dark chocolate, and the other product, general contractor, international mover, and freight forwarder. Short of innovation, that the first is higher education, 2 public university, 20 private universities or institutes, for example, Universitas Islam Negeri Syarif Hidayatullah, Sekolah Tinggi Akuntansi Negara, University of Pamulang, and others. And the source of innovation, Science and Technology Research Center, Puspitek, an area of 470 hectares, supported by more and less 2,500 educated human resources, engineering, and technician, 47 center of government-owned R&D and testing laboratorium, BPPT, Batan, LIPI, and the Ministry of Environment. 7 focus area of research in Puspitek is about agriculture and food, renewable energy, health and medicine, information and communication technology, technology and transportation management, defense and advanced material. Some Puspitek technology products in biotechnology, plant seeds, LIPI, and BPPT, such as ornamental plants like orchid, has been implemented in ornamental city center. Organic fertilizer products and enzymes of plant growth promoter, hatchery and fish farming technology, health product and cosmetics, skin swab, etc. Nanotechnology for cosmetic, food product for medical application. Material technology for lithium battery, polymer plastic for asphalt package, polymer product for packaging, polymer for home emergency light, and waste treatment technology, domestic wastewater process technology, hospital waste process technology, and nuclear waste technology. Some Puspitek technology product, Batan, BPPT, and Business Innovation Center, that it supposed to be together collaboration with the people in the city of Tangerang and the business and the community and the academy. Private sector or business support in Tangerang, housing and infrastructure development is Sinarmas Land, hospital, and many others kind in like the infrastructure IT. So the closing is that Tangerang City Government plan that the existing synergy between stakeholders, international community, central government, higher education, R&D institution, the business community and society can continue to be improved in order to support the economy, competitiveness of the region-based innovation, and to make Tangerang City as a high competitive and smart city. City of Tangerang offer cooperation among WTA members to conduct partnership in developing the city. Government of City Tangerang invite all participants to invest in the field of green technology for developing city prosperity. And the most important thing that we must together do collaboration in Tangerang, the government, the academici, and the business or the private sector and the community. We have a lot of community in Tangerang from the people in the Tangerang, and probably it will make our city more better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Here you have seen the word Puspitek. Puspitek is a cluster of national research institutes of Indonesia, which is concentrated in Tangerang City. Thank you very much again. Okay, our next speaker is our Honorable Assistant Minister, Mr. Jae-Moon Park. He is talking about realization of the regional creative economy through the innovation of National Research and Development Project. Please.
Good morning. I'm Jae-Moon Park, Assistant Minister for R&D Policy at Ministry of Science, ICT, and Future Planning of Korea. I'm very delighted and honored to be presenting today at Daejeon Global Innovation Forum. In this session, I'll present you how Korea is trying to achieve a regional creative economy through the National R&D Innovation Scheme. This presentation has three main bodies. First, I will introduce you how Korea is in the advent of creative economy era and what this means. Secondly, I'll explain how South Korea is innovating the national R&D scheme. Finally, clarify how this scheme is expected to change the regional creative economy of South Korea in the near future. Now, let me begin with the explanation about how Korea is in the advent of creative economy era. South Korea achieved the miracle of Han River through the catch-up compacted growth strategy for the past 5 decades, while putting science and technology at the heart of the drivers. National GDP has increased by 1,000-fold from $1.3 billion in 1953 to $1.3 trillion in 2013. And as of 2012, South Korea demonstrates the largest share in the global semiconductor market and mobile phone, including smartphone, shipbuilding, and display panel markets. However, there are barriers and limitations to this catch-up growth model. This model is weak in securing basic technologies and is too slow to react to various global changes we are currently facing, such as the global economic recession and the new rise of emerging countries. Korean economy is facing the decrease of potential growth rates and jobless growth today, which requires a new national growth strategy to overcome those barriers and limitations. The Creative Economy Scheme aims to create innovative markets by combining ingenious ideas and imaginations with technology. This will help build a new ecosystem to create growth engines for our future economy. As many of you know, creative economy is the key agenda for current Park Geun-hye administration. Creative economy is the new national growth strategy, which aims to develop new markets in science and technology based on people's advanced imagination and creativity. And also it highlights the strengthening of current industries to create more jobs. To enter the era of creative economy, current administration revised and detailed the national growth strategy in 2013. One of the implementation plan was to launch the Ministry of Science, ICT, and Future Planning. And our role includes enhancing productivity of existing industries and creating new businesses and jobs by combining imagination and creativity of people with science and technology. In addition, under the vision of leading a new era to ensure nation's hope and happiness through creative economy, Korean government established detailed implementation strategies. To achieve these, the administration is promoting action plans in 2014. Key strategies of these plans are accelerating the establishment of creative economy ecosystem, creating future growth engines, and strengthening infrastructure for creative economy. Moreover, we plan to open the Creative Economy Innovation Centers in 17 locations around the nation by 2015, which will be used as the regional innovation centers and enterprise hubs. Now, I would like to move to the second part of my presentation, the innovation of national R&D scheme. In November 2013, Korean government announced the third Science and Technology Basic Plan to step forward for implementation of the creative economy. This plan has 5 strategies, which we'll call High Five, under the vision, lead a new era of hope via creative science and technology. The High Five aims to achieve $30,000 for GNI per capita and create 64,000 new jobs by 2017. These strategies focus on the issues ranging from R&D to development of new industries and jobs. Currently, these strategies are working as a guideline in national budget setting and evaluation of R&D projects. To achieve the goal of Korean government's science and technology basic plans, we have set up detailed indicators into 6 categories. By pushing forward the plans proactively, we aim to increase our ranking of Composite Science and Technology Innovation Index from current 9th to 7th in the near future, and the number of science and technology-related jobs from 6 million to 6.7 million. The contribution rate of R&D to economic growth will be elevated to 40% from current 35.4%. In addition, to achieve the national income of $40,000 and create more high-quality jobs, the government plans to implement 13 future growth engine projects. Those projects include cultivating 9 strategic industries in 3 categories and 4 platform industries to ensure sustainable growth. In specific, our focuses will be on 5G mobile communication, deep-sea offshore plant, intelligent robot, wearable smart device, smart disaster and safety management system, renewable energy hybrid system, convergent materials, and intelligent Internet of Things sectors, etc. Now I would like to present final part of my presentation and provide you with more details on how we plan to achieve a regional creative economy through innovation. The history of Innopolis, former called Daejeon Special R&D Zone, started in 1973. The history itself shows the advancement of R&D and innovation clusters in Korea. In 2003, the Korean government's budget toward R&D was $13.6 billion. That was more than 50% of total R&D investment in Korea. Nonetheless, R&D productivity and technology transfer revenue to R&D investment have made slow progress. This situation has called for the enhancement of technology transfer and commercialization. To this end, in 2005, the government enacted a special act to support the Innopolis to create R&D innovation clusters around the nation. Currently, we have 4 Innopolis in 4 regions in Korea. The most well-known is the Innopolis Daejeon, in which 7 universities, 24 public research institutes, and more than 1,300 companies are located. The Innopolis Daejeon generates revenue of $16.6 billion a year. In 2011, Innopolis Gwangju and Innopolis Daegu were additionally designated. Innopolis Gwangju is specialized in optics and smart grid industries, while Innopolis Daegu is focusing on smart IT convergence, medical equipment, and green energy industries. In 2012, Innopolis Busan was newly designated in order to conduct research on the shipbuilding and offshore plant sectors. In order for technology to be commercialized, the venture needs to overcome the Death Valley and Darwin's Sea. Acknowledging this, the Innopolis contributes to realize the creative economy by preparing the following processes. First, finding promising technologies based on R&D outcomes. Second, commercializing those technologies. And finally, providing comprehensive support for startups. These activities play a key role in creating new markets and quality jobs. The business model of Innopolis will be introduced to the Creative Economy Innovation Center of each regional government. We will establish the Creative Economy Innovation Center in 17 regions around the country by 2015 in order to promote the innovation of regional economy. Through these centers, we will support the commercialization of new ideas and startups of local talents. These centers will also act as regional innovation hubs to effectively utilize existing human and physical resources in each region. The Creative Economy Innovation Center will focus on fostering region-specific strategic businesses by promoting joint R&D projects and supporting strategic partnerships between SMEs and large companies. Secondly, the centers will form innovation communities in which industry, academia, and research experts participate. Thirdly, the center will bring a total support system for SMEs growth by operating enterprise innovation consulting desk and enterprise innovation support website. The Creative Economy Innovation Center will also act as a startup hubs. To this end, the centers will operate tailored training programs to create the entrepreneurial culture. Training programs are conducted by various professionals and experts in specific fields of business. In addition, the hubs will create interactive and collaborative spaces for active networking and consulting. These programs will help vitalize investment, commercialization, setting up startups, and finally, global business. To activate the regional startup ecosystem, the Creative Economy Innovation Center will also foster professional accelerators like regional angel investors and venture capitalists. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Assistant Minister. Okay, now I have the honor to introduce the last speaker, Dr. Sulaiman from Malaysia. He's going to talk the Malaysian recipe for the innovation facilitator. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, annyeonghaseyo. Assalamualaikum, and also a very good morning to all of you. I'll try to share with you some of the challenges and experience of Malaysia in innovating our country and also some selected regions of the country. Well, I always use this slide. I borrowed it from the idea of Professor Kim Min Hak, that sometimes when I finish my presentation, somebody was talking to me and telling me, you know, that guy who presented, okay, he did say this and that, and you know, he was talking to me. But I think today there's no problem because there's a big screen and showing how I am, because I'm not that very tall for people to recognize me immediately. So anyway, I come from a few organizations, but the main organization that I'll be representing is from the Prime Minister's office, and our aspiration to make Malaysia a innovation-led economy by 2020 and beyond. So I'm sure you have heard the phrase, innovate or perish. And I think Malaysian, we decide we don't want to perish, so we have to innovate. And we represent our innovation aspiration in a form of a tree, because Malaysian economy started with a tree, the rubber tree, way back in 1950s. And then later on, we have the oil palm tree, which we took from the African continent and planted in our country. And the two of these products became the lifesaver of Malaysian economy over the years. But I think we could not stop at just looking at this commodity and export it and market it as just commodity. But now we are looking at it as becoming semi-finished and finished products. But really, the tree bring us very good aspiration. And many innovation too started under the tree. Like somebody was hit by an apple on his head and suddenly found gravity. So I think this is a very good representation of our aspirations. Well, we are embracing the innovation 4.0, and in many ways, we are really aligned to this, because we think that innovation must not only benefit a few, not only the companies. It must transcend. It must go out to the people, whether they are in the city or whether they are in the rural areas. And that is our basis of developing innovation in our country. So we are looking at other things too. But really, if the people do not benefit from the knowledge, from the, in terms of economy or jobs creations, then what are we talking about in terms of innovation? And in order to make this sustainable, I guess we have heard from a lot of speakers about having an innovation framework, having a national innovation system. But the real thing is that without this kind of framework, it is not sustainable. We have to have a clear framework that our politicians, that our policymakers, that our scientists have to embrace, that this is not going to be for the next 2 or 3 years only. This is going to stay with us for the next 10, 15 years. And therefore, we have to be very careful with what we put into the framework and how the framework works. So eventually, what we want to do is to create a knowledge-friendly ecosystem, which is actually about sharing of knowledge anyway. And that knowledge will create innovation by itself. People will tend to be creative once they have the knowledge. And the role of government is very, very key. And I think it's not only just government, it's the leader. When you have a leader who actually who actually appreciates science and technology in the economic or the nation's development, then you have more an easier path, trying to get the budget, trying to get the buy-in of government in implementing many of these programs. So, but the other thing that the government has to do is to be realistic and tell people that I can't do it on my own. I can't, as a government, implement innovation by myself. And the most important thing nowadays is to be able to get the private sector to buy into many of your innovation activities or programs. And in Malaysia, we are now talking about a 60-40 ratio for all national programs need to be funded by the private sector to a tune as much as 60%, and the rest only be funded by the government, or else we will not going to do those programs. So getting the private sector is very, very key. And in Malaysia, we have such thing as government-linked companies, the biggest companies in Malaysia, but they are still very reluctant and very cautious about investing in innovation. So we have to slowly bring them into the mainstream and try to encourage them to think innovation. We have not done that badly. I think the last few months we were in the news And I think by now everybody knows where Malaysia is and, our carrier Malaysia Airlines. But really, I mean, in some of these things that we do, that we have been quite satisfactory in terms of our achievement. One is in terms of the ease of doing business. We have actually come down to being number 4th in the world of making it easy for whether foreign companies to come to Malaysia or even our local companies to conduct business. So in that mode, I would like to invite many of you to come to Malaysia because it's very easy to do business there. And one of the other things, of course, we aspire, like what Korea has done, to become the top 10 of innovation, whether it's in terms of the Global Competitiveness Index and etc. We know we have a long way to go, but by 2020, we hope that we could actually be among the top 10s in the world. So that is where Malaysia is in the context of the ASEAN region. Next year, we are going to chair the ASEAN group for the next 2 years. And therefore, the context of to look at Malaysia or Indonesia, I think you have to look at the whole context of ASEAN and what it can offer to those coming from Europe or coming from United States. Because as a region, we have a large population, but the one thing that we know that you need very, very much is our natural resources. So there is a way to collaborate to bring a win-win situation for both of our sides. So in terms of economic transformation, we have come a long way. I mentioned to you about being a commodity-driven, agriculture-driven economy way back in the 1950s, 1960s. We were independent in 1957, so we are about 57 years old now. And around the 1970s and 1980s, we start to industrialize, try to put more value into some of these commodities and also to create some new industries. In 1985, we created our national car project, I think at a similar time with Hyundai. And of course, we have a long way to catch up with Hyundai now. But we are very proud that we have our own car industry that houses around 400 vendors in Malaysia. So with the opening up of ASEAN region next year, we think that there will be quite a competition with Thailand and etc. But we hope that we can also cooperate to make our regional car industries something to behold and to compete with the rest of the world. And finally, we are at the moment what we term as a middle income trap. We have not been able to move beyond the 10,000, 12,000 US dollars GDP per capita for so long. I think the conclusion that we made is because we were over-dependent on the manufacturing industry, which is at the end where it's a low value. We manufacture by design, so it's somebody else's design and etc. In the 1990s, we were the #1 exporter for air conditioner and also semiconductor products, but they were made by foreign companies which resides in Malaysia. So we now have to think about how to develop an ecosystem which can benefit from the existence of these multinational companies. So these are some of the things that we want to develop further. And according to the regional locations, some of these have already prospered, but we need to go beyond that. In aerospace, we are supplying to the likes of Airbus and Boeing, but we think that we need to do more in terms of raw materials, composite design. We need to look at many other things in terms of including biomaterials in some of the aircraft and also in the automotive sector, and some other programs. This has been our vision. We need 2020 was a vision which was created by Tun Mahathir way back in 1990, which wants Malaysia to become a developed country by 2020. And all this while we are implementing programs after programs that need to be that will lead us to that particular target. But the one thing that we have to remember always, a good policy doesn't mean good outcomes unless there's implementation, implementation, implementation. So what we are thinking about now is to move beyond that and get our science into action proper. Because we have very good plans in Malaysia, but somehow people are very reluctant. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the private sector are not playing their role too. So we have to encourage them to become more active and to develop this science into action. We divide the Science to Action initiative, which we introduced last year, into 3 components. One is science for governance, the other is science for well-being, the other one is science for industry, so that we can have a balanced growth without interfering too much with our environment, but also to benefit the people, whether they are in the most remotest area in Malaysia. So for that, when we look at science for governance, you know, throughout when we start to introduce science and technology as one of the major programs in Malaysia, sometimes after a while, you have too many agencies, you have too many duplications, you have too many, divergence. You need to put everything back into frame. And for our science for governance, you know, for example, our Prime Minister chairs about 9 science and technology councils. I wonder how he can find time to do that. So finally we said, sir, you only have 1 council to chair, and the rest, let your ministers to chair. And also, we want to revitalize many of the agencies which have been around for some time. They need to change to look into this innovation-led economy. So that's one thing that we advise the Prime Minister, only chair 1 council. We need to have real R&D priority areas, not one which is supported by 1 ministry and then you have another set by another ministry. So you have to have 1 for the country proper. We set up the National Science Research Council, which actually now does that, and we have 9 specific areas to focus on. The other thing is that the government sector is very, very key to also move things. And we have introduced what we call the foresight and futures thinking for the government sector, so that they are able to see that their job is beyond tomorrow, not just the day after, but to the next 10, 15 years. And therefore, they can appreciate what scientists, what companies are doing when they invest in a long-term venture. Next is science for well-being. I've spoken to Richard this morning, telling him about our concern when the young people are now a bit reluctant to embrace science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM as a study or as a career. Because they're looking at all the business people driving Ferraris all around. They said, I want to do that too. And I don't see people in lab coats driving Ferrari. Maybe they should go to US and see, because there's so many of them over there. But when we talk about talent development, we are looking at creating interest among the young people for STEM. And sometimes the formal education systems are quite strict in terms of trying to make students pass exams. So we think that there should be a complementary stream to create programs where children and their parents can do hands-on weekly or monthly activities to inculcate that kind of interest. And of course, that will augur well for our future workforce in terms of manning some of our industries. You have heard about smart communities. We are too thinking that people in the rural areas should be given opportunity by including technology in their lives. So you can actually create precision farming activities so that they can triple or quadruple their income by doing those activities instead of just traditional farming. And that's some of the programs that I mentioned to you. One of it is Rimbunan Kasih, where we actually now develop new smart villages around the country so that we can bring the poor people, those without jobs, to these areas where they can actually do jobs and live in a very comfortable way. And also in the non-communicable disease, Malaysia, we are so fat. I mean, coming to Korea, we see everybody so slim and thin. And, we are a bit jealous of you. We have one of the biggest obesity problem in Malaysia. And that will affect our productivity and the likes. So I'll try to bring some of your menu and recipes back to Malaysia so that we can bring the, waste down for the Malaysian. And of course, public-private partnership is the key to moving innovation. And unless the private sector sees the benefit of it, and if they can see the benefit of it, they will be able to put funds, resources for programs and the likes. One of the programs that we did under Mohd is to bring the two biggest plantation company in Malaysia, which has been exporting commodity all the while, to actually look into biomass. Malaysia produces 80 million tons of biomass every year from the oil palm plantation. They could be transformed into sugars and could be transformed into green chemicals, whether it's bioethanol or butanol, which carries about what, $4,000 per ton. So for that almost free biomass, you could create a very big industry. And the rural people and the small medium enterprise can do business like transporting, collecting, and you move the whole industry. The academia can start doing research on creating more catalysts or other products that may come from this. So what we call the 360 degrees is that with one program, you touch all levels of society. So that is a good model for us to move forward. International collaboration is very key. We work with the United States for the QBT program in San Francisco. There's a lab-to-lab kind of approach where we bring our scientists into the labs of the American research institutions or universities. I mentioned about biomass. I also talk about aerospace. Now we are working with Rolls-Royce and Airbus to develop R&D programs which they will uptake immediately. There is a problem in my country that research and development stays on the shelves and it never see the light of day in the market. So we have to bring the market and the academia much closer together, and we've done that through our AMIC program. So all this must be equal to economic opportunities because a poor country cannot do much. And we want to do so much. We want the people to be happy, and we want to also protect our environment, which is very costly. To go into bioeconomy is very costly. To do a lot of green requirements is very costly. So the country has to prosper so that they can undertake many of these activities. I'll just finish off in a few minutes just to show you some of the programs that we are doing in terms of inculcating more business opportunities for our people. One is called Digital Malaysia, which is talking about the second phase of the multimedia super corridor development, trying to look at many of the creative industries. And we were very happy 2 years ago that The Life of Pi won the Academy Award for Special Effects because those were done in Malaysia by Malaysians. And of course, the bioeconomy, we have 65% of our country covered by forests. We want to be very careful with it. We want to make sure that it's also bringing some business or some income to our people. But really, we want to make sure that the forest stays at least 50% in our country. And again, the question of entrepreneurship. A lot of things has been tried, some good, some fail. Now we come up with a new one called Malaysian Global Innovation and Creative Center. And we hope that bringing entrepreneurs together with the business people, with their mentors and etc., we could actually produce more innovation and entrepreneurs in the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your indulgence. Thank you, and Assalamualaikum.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sulaiman. Okay, we have now listened one keynote speech and 5 panel presentation. I appreciate very much for the outstanding presentation and also your attention from the audience. Even though we are a little bit behind our schedule, we started actually about 15 minutes. But this is, I think, really good chance to have a review of the internationally famous innovation center cities. So I'd like to have a couple of questions from the floor. So I would appreciate if you raise your hand and identify yourself and to whom you want to ask. Okay, please. The session is open to the floor. Okay. Please wait a second for the mic. Okay, go ahead, please. 마이크 좀 해주세요. 네. Okay. 다른 거. no. 엔지니어가 좀 도와줘야 될 것 같으네. Sorry. All right.
Thank you. I'm Marga Ali Shabana from the Institute of Technology in Tangerang, Selatan, Indonesia. Actually, I would like to ask a question to John Luger. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, from Manchester. You mentioned that there was a shift in the ownership of the science park as well as in the airport group. And I'm wondering if you could comment on any changes that you see or what the effect of this change in ownership to the private sector would be. And if I'm allowed, I would also like to ask a question to Dresden, James Darling, about, in Allentown, not Dresden, I'm sorry, about the merger of two universities that you said had a total population of 29,000. And I'm wondering if you could comment if there are any problems in that or what you foresee in this merger of the two universities. I think that's what I would like to ask. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would you please?
Both the science park and the airport in Manchester had great ambition to do further development for economic development for the region. But in both cases, it was constrained by the availability of investment money. Because it's a Western economy that's heavily in debt, because of the recession, the government funds that had fueled a lot of that weren't there. So the question was, how do you get private money to the table without giving up control? So in both cases, it was rather a delicate balance, but a successful conclusion where private investors were brought in to provide the capital, but the city and its collaboration stayed a significant enough shareholder to be able to veto and direct the investment. So money was brought to the table for further development. Some ownership was given up to the private sector, but in return, valuable resources were brought to bear.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. Okay, switch on, please.
There. The question on the new universities, the first one's kind of flippant, but the biggest question to the students was the name of the new mascot, because they had to give up their mascot, and that was probably took up a lot of newspaper articles and everything. And one mascot was the Bronx, the Broncos horses, and the other one was some cat. And so they decided the Vaqueros, which is Spanish for cowboy. But that took a lot of time. But the real issues were where the facility is going to be located. These two universities, one was 18,000 in Hidalgo County, which is a county with 35 cities. The other was a 10,000 person university about 50 miles away. And so the fight was for where some of the facilities were going to go. The Board of Regents, the managing board for the whole university system, sought proposals from cities and said, we're looking for land and economic incentives to put certain facilities in certain cities. That was a terrible process. We talk about collaboration, and we had that, and all of a sudden it went up in smoke because the powers that be, the governing entity, decided to pit cities versus cities for the facilities. They've backed off that process. We've told them, you put it where the best place where it should be, where it's going to benefit the students. And they've gone back to the drawing board and done that. Thankfully, my city's gotten a research center and the residence programs in our city, but it was a choice by the university and not done by political pressure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Maybe one more question from the floor. Professor O, please.
It's the question to Professor Michael Luger. I think you have a very good understanding about the innovation policy happening in the research triangle in the United States, because you have done the serious research on that. And also you have another experience on the UK. could you please make a comparison between the Manchester and Research Triangle in the United States? What happened? What kind of difference? What kind of common futures about these innovation policies?
Why couldn't you ask a simple question? It's hard to generalize. It's a question of a point in time. The innovativeness in Research Triangle really happened in the 50s and 60s when there was a cadre of leaders who had vision. That sort of disappeared a little bit. My last years in Research Triangle, I was trying to get the park to think of it as a brand that needed to be leveraged and to use the Research Triangle Park brand to create other economic development hubs around the state. And they became very conservative. We're at a period now in Manchester where its leadership is very visionary and very dynamic. And it's willing to take some chances and do things differently. So it's really a moment in time. Manchester Science Park, and Malcolm Perry could attest to this, is being very innovative. It's leveraging its brand. It's developing sites all over the UK, all over the Manchester region, using the Manchester Science Park brand, doing things, getting outside investment to come in. So right now, it's being more innovative than Research Triangle, which is sitting on its laurels a little bit.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure that you have many more questions, but we have a coffee break from now on about 20 minutes. Now I think I'm going to close this morning the plenary session 2. I once again express my sincere appreciation to our all speakers for the wonderful presentation and the attention from the audience. Thank you very much. Next session will start from 11:30 here.
여러분들의 열정적인 참여로 본 세션이 매우 성공적으로 끝났습니다. 다시 한번 함께 큰 박수로 이 세션을 마무리하도록 하겠습니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to your active participation. The session was ended in a great success. Let's wrap up the session with a big round of applause.